and welcome to the best fucking podcast in the world. I'm JD. Unfortunately, Lloyd can't be with us this week, but Sarah Kellysen from the YYC2 community has decided to join us. She was Video Creator of the Month a couple months back, and she is stepping into Lloyd's shoes. So how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you?
Good. I'm doing great. So what have you been up to? I mean, you've been part of the YouTube community for a long time. You were picked as Creator of the Month just a couple months back. I know that you've been looking to come on the show. You've had your music all over the place. I know that you've been working hard on that. So let's start with the YouTube stuff. So how did it feel becoming Creator of the Month for Calgary?
Oh my God. It was like overwhelming at first. It was like a crazy month because everything was coming in at once. It was like, because the album was coming out that month. New Arctic season was getting filmed that month. We were revamping the show. So it was honestly such an honor to be to get like recognized for my YouTube creations and stuff. It was like, it felt like after so long of doing YouTube that it finally got recognized what I do, and it made me realize what I do is like so important.
Right. Because you've been part of YouTube for a very, very long time. You had channels where I think you said that you did things like RuneScape. And,
RuneScape music videos.
And all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've been on the platform for years and years and years. And Arctic, for those who don't know, is kind of a series where there's multiple actors that do multiple parts. You sort of do them within your own space. You're given the script, and obviously it's edited together. And it's kind of, I guess the way to put it is kind of like a teen sort of, you know, high school kind of show, right? I mean, you've got...
it's like an internet collab show. Yeah. It's a very different format from anything that's ever done on YouTube. Anyone that comes on the show is like, this has never been done before. So, and we were trying to... Because we worked with Drake Vegas, who does Drake Lloyd, and it's like kind of like a teen network for younger audiences on the net, because there isn't really a safe spot for that. Right. Especially in this day and age. So he wanted to create like more of a safe teen sort of network, but it's still kind of, you know, a little on edge. Right. You know, we do some controversial stuff sometimes. We do topics on like transgender, gender fluidity, kids learning about the LGBT community. Right. So it's...
Yeah. So, I mean, in a sense, like, I mean, if you look, I mean, that's always kind of been the thing with teen stuff, especially in Canada. If you look at things like Degrassi Junior High, when it was back in the day, it tackled issues like teen pregnancy, you know, alcoholism, all that kind of stuff, sort of big teen problems. And I mean, for the time when that was out, which was basically the 80s, I mean, it was sort of unheard of. So, I mean, I can understand where that is sort of coming when you're attacking those issues. And obviously, you know, to a degree where it's, you know, sort of identified in that way. But how long have you been doing Arctic for?
Well, since I was like in my last year of high school, it was 2012 when we did the pilot episode, and we were like in a pilot phase for a while. And then in 2013, we decided to start filming a whole season of like 26 episodes. So since then, so it's been about probably 6 years of production, almost 5 years on air. So it's been a long time, and it feels like a lifetime. Each season feels like it goes by so fast, the years, because it's like a routine, because it's like kind of like going to school, even though not really, but but it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it so much more now. In the beginning, I was like not sure, because I didn't feel like my character Jennifer was like me at all. Right. But now we're kind of growing her into who I am. Right. Who I am as like a woman, as a male, in both ways. So, and it's a good place to where I can like, as well, it keeps me pretty grounded. So. Right.
I mean, 6 seasons is a long time. I mean, the vast majority of television shows, which produced anywhere from, you know, maybe 8 to 14 episodes in a season typically last 2 or 3 years. That's kind of the run of most television network shows, unless they're hugely successful, unless they are in a position where they can basically change characters, you know, and that's why things like The Simpsons and South Park are so, you know, long running, mainly because, you know, South Park in the case because they have such a small group of voices and it's the two main guys that do the vast majority of voices. But in the case of The Simpsons, I mean, when you have voice actor changes, it's not as evident because it's animated, whereas always in television, if you change a main character, sometimes that changes the whole dynamic of the show.
Yes,
I mean, there haven't been a lot of shows other than, I would say, Doctor Who, but that's because the whole actor change concept is really built into sort of the, you know, dynamic of the show, in the sense that the Doctor goes through these transformations and then essentially he's a new person, right? And I mean, even with that show, when you see things like when they switch doctors, and I mean, I'm not even talking about the latest Doctor being female, I'm talking about other Doctors, people sometimes get upset. They don't like certain actors. You know, they're attached to people and then they change them and then people are upset. So I mean, you know, it's, you know, keeping that core and doing what you've done for so long is, you know, it's a good thing, because I mean, it's hard to keep something going for that long. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, it's, you know, like the podcast here, we've done this for over 3 years now.
Yeah,
and it's just, you know, it keeps on going. But, you know, if it wasn't for the dedication of Lloyd and myself to the podcast, it would just kind of, you know, fall short. So having something where you've got a bunch of actors, and I know, you know, Arctic has had actor changes and all that kind
definitely.
of stuff, but, you know, it's done in a way, like you said, that's unique, that you're able to sort of accommodate for that, you know, as long as sort of the main players. But I mean, even that, I'm sure you have ups and downs with that show. So
we definitely do. Over the years, we've had so many actor changes. It's hard to like get like a stable cast, especially when a lot of these especially are newcomers. And that's what Drake Vegas usually looks for, is new talent. And, you know, it makes you realize that like 10 years on YouTube is a long time. Yep. A lot of these people are as well YouTubers and they're just in their first year, but then they realize after a year that they want to like, you know, quit and be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. So what do you think? You've been on YouTube for a long, long time. What do you think of the changes that have been made? You know, things like basically the demonetization, apocalypse, all those kind of things. Do you see a future in YouTube, and what does that future look like?
It's hard to tell. And I think you made a video last week speaking about how, like, is YouTube like is it like a platform that's going downhill? And I think, you know, with all these changes, they're really like, you know, pushing their creators around, especially with the demonetization. You know, because a lot of people make money off this. They do this for a living. I did this for a living one time when I was out of high school, and that's really tough, especially with all the frequent changes. Right. I would say the future of YouTube's like unpredictable right now. You can't really predict where they're going to go. I see a lot of people moving to Twitch and those types of streaming networks and stuff, rather than just making videos, because it's kind of like, what are you doing? Because they're getting so, like, they're changing the demonetization rules, it seems like, every month now. Yeah.
And you know, just some other stuff. And I always have sort of the daily JD where I talk about stuff. Yeah. And, but I was reading stuff this morning. They have some announcements in regards to monetization again at the end of I think this month. So I mean, it's gonna change again. I think is kind of what the preamble is. I know they've been backlogged with stuff, and you know, actually channels that should be monetized are not getting monetized because they're in a huge queue. But I'll save that, you know, sort of for a different time. So I mean, music wise, you've obviously been using it to promote your music. You've had a fair bit of success, and for those who haven't seen Sarah's music, I would call it very like basically art nouveau kind of, you know, stuff.
Multi-genre.
It occupies a different space. If you've been to Sled Island and you've seen some of the more artistic performances there, it would fall sort of into those categories. It's not kind of your, you know, straight up rock and roll or anything like that. It occupies a different space. I mean, there's definitely popular. You sort of blew up in Japan for a little bit.
Yeah, the other side did well there for some reason. It's always in the Asian countries that it's more popular. Thailand, for instance, I get a lot of streams and like sales there as well. And it's really interesting that it's over there and not so much here. But I kind of understand why it's not, why my work would not be as accepted here. It's always been a battle for that.
Right.
It's been more accepted in like the past year, I would say.
Right.
But, you know, there's still a long way to go with gender fluid artists.
Right. And things like you've started putting your stuff out on Amazon directly, so you've got like physical sales through Amazon.
Yeah, it's in only in the UK, unfortunately.
How come you chose the UK?
It was actually the only option that they had.
Oh, really?
For my when I was distributing it, it was like they didn't put. I wish it was international, but no, they only said UK for
so
now.
You just,
it's
and how's it been doing in the UK?
It's been okay, but
it's
not,
been okay?
not
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, those things are always, kind of tough.
It is tough
because I don't music and music distribution. I mean, I know, guys that are in a lot more, I would call mainstream bands, even have issues with distribution,
especially
and getting
with
their music
work.
out there. Yeah. Physical albums just don't, sort of make the sales that they do. And I mean, if you're watching an interesting conversation to watch is between Steven Tyler and Joe Rogan about the whole Spotify thing and how Spotify pays and all those kind of things. They talk about Smokey Robinson, who you would think with all his music and how much people do his music, how little he gets paid from these kind of things. And it's kind of crazy. Like it had been... They had talked, his albums had been streamed millions and millions and millions and millions of times. He figured he was owed about $250,000 in revenue, and what they offered to pay him was about $12,000. So I recommend you go check that out if you're a musician and you're working in music. The Joe Rogan podcast, he sits down with Steven Tyler. And I mean, Steven's obviously got the pedigree as well, being in Aerosmith and being, sort of in music for that amount of time and being at the top of things, and all his work with American Idol and stuff like that. So I can understand where it's, very, very difficult, in those regards. And a lot of people just aren't consuming, sort of anything other than downloads. I mean,
that's so sad. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm like such a big fan of physical music that if there's only digital copies, I will get the digital copies, but physical, I always need the physical copy because there's just something so much more special holding it and holding, like, I love looking through artwork and stuff, and like especially in vinyls of how big it's blown up. I would get that as well. So
I think it's very much gone though. I mean, vinyls had a resurgence over the last years. I mean, a lot of people that occupy that space like myself have been collecting vinyl for a long, long time because that's what albums were that sounded best when I was young were on. Like you wouldn't buy cassettes or, you'd have to do the stupid pencil thing or all that kind of stuff. It was nice to see the resurgence of it, just, sort of for nostalgia purposes. But to be honest, a lot of new music I don't buy as vinyl just because they're recorded digitally. So when they're recorded digitally and then they're put on there, it's not the same thing. I mean, you'll actually get a better quality through, things like an actual, video an audio file. So, I mean, it's interesting. But, I mean, I think it's lost a lot of stuff. Like you said, the artwork, was super important in albums. But, I think that kind of stuff is lost. And I think, honestly, the day videos, like rock videos is kind of come to an end as well. The MTV or in Canada's case, Much Music, those channels used to be absolutely massive, and now not so much. And I mean, people are still producing videos and putting them out. I'm sure you heard the news that basically YouTube had acquired sort of an agreement with Vivo, which is run by two of the most largest sort of record labels that are out there, and basically made an arrangement for advertising. And now YouTube is going to push music as a thing, much like Spotify. So they've actually got an app in development for that.
Oh, so that's good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or not though. Like it
depends.
Yeah.
I don't trust Vivo really, to be honest with you. So I just never did since the beginning because it's just like it just feels like this corporate that's just making all this money. And
I mean, they're record labels, and that's what they do. It's interesting that that's partnership with YouTube, and it'll be interesting, I think, for YouTube musicians. So people like yourself who occupy a space on YouTube, where essentially you're there as a musician, whether or not you will kind of get taken in by that umbrella, like like as independent sort of Vivo artists, or will you be lumped in much like, sort of with Apple and Apple's, streaming service, is your music going to, be put up through there? I mean, it's interesting because they're not always very communicative. And,
no, definitely not.
YouTube as a whole.
YouTube and the administration in general is not the most communicative, and they also play their favorites. Yeah. They don't, there's certain content of mine that I know they don't really approve of in general. Right. So, and there's like certain videos with certain topics that are like demonetized for a reason. Right.
Have you found that, like before the full demonetization, that you were getting hit by the demonetization bond a lot?
I was slowly getting it, and it was funny because it was like on my older videos. Yeah. It was slowly getting it one by one. And I think you had the same thing where one by one per day. Oh, yeah. There was like... They're just like trying to find something and they're going to just demonetize it, you know? Yeah. And it was kind of, it doesn't surprise me though, because they kind of like, a year ago, with the Arctic, some of our LGBT episodes weren't even like allowed to be posted for...
and when they did that, was there any sort of rationale behind it? Was there anything that they, sort of sent you guys, or it was just kind of like a done deal and that was it?
They sent Drake Vegas something that a lot of people were filing complaints to this video for some reason. Right. So I don't know if it was the user activity or them doing it particularly. Right.
So it could generally be just user base, sort of influence.
We have a very mixed conservative liberal sort of fan base. So right. It's really interesting.
I imagine that is. I mean, especially if you're, you start pivoting on things and introducing things that, people are not necessarily comfortable with, that is going to cause.
Because I'm Catholic as well. Right. So a lot of my Catholic people don't always tend to like what I do, but that's okay. It makes it more fun, I think.
So what do you have planned for this year coming up?
Well, I've been on a break for a while, for the past month, because I've been in school and I've been trying to focus on that, keeping a straight A average. But I am releasing Redemption music video in 2 weeks on May 28th, and it's probably the final single to transition. And we're finishing up the Arctic season next month as well. So we finish in June and then go back in September for 5th season, and then. I think, and I'm just trying to revamp my setup at home as well, putting lights in, rather than just the shade and tea internet propaganda stuff that's going on in the background. But I think that's pretty much it for now. Right. Just trying. I'm also wanting to do more acting. I might go to other like Toronto and stuff to audition for acting. But
so you're looking for a more mainstream kind of entry into,
sort of. I don't like to say mainstream because
or not mainstream. I guess traditional is kind of
trying to look at where I can go. Right. I'm trying to figure out my college degree and see, because I'm really trying to be local. I'm trying to stay in the city of Calgary. It's tough to be an artist here. Yeah. Especially like a gender fluid artist, but I kind of like going against the grain. Right. Questioning, challenging people on that. So,
well, I imagine in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, where there are larger, sort of communities as well, that it would be more difficult to sort of stand out. In those communities as well. And I mean, I assume there's also a ton of politics, sort of within that, because I've seen it, what people say, among the community themselves as well. So I mean, it's an interesting kind of subculture in that regards, right? So I mean,
that's absolutely true. That's a different way to look at it. Yeah. I see it as like me. If I went into those places, it'd be more easier for me. Right. But at the same time, I'm not here for easy. Right. I just like to hit it hard.
Fair enough. So. People looking to see your stuff, to check out your music, where can they find that?
My music's on Apple Music, Spotify, Sarah Kellysen. You can just search the title. Then you can find my music videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Sarah Kellysen, Instagram.com/Sarah Kellysen, and then Facebook.com/Sarah Kellysen Official.
Perfect.
I think those are all my links.
Yeah.
And Twitter, Victorious with 2 R's.
There you go. So we'll throw those links down below. You can also check out Sarah's Creator of the Month videos on Calgary Video Creators video page, as well as their website. That's all we have time for this week. And until next time, I'm JD.
I'm Sarah.
See ya.
See you.